So from Jessie Carstairs on Instagram, when a woman feels unsafe emotionally or spiritually, she becomes dysregulated. When she feels unseen, unheard, she becomes distant. When she feels unled, she becomes controlling. When she feels unloved, she becomes indifferent. All reflects her man's presence and absence. If she's frumpy, withdrawn, careless with her appearance, ask yourself if she feels pursued, admired, coveted, covered. Women flourish where they feel seen and secure. A woman blooms in the garden her husband cultivates. If she's constantly anxious or walking on eggshells, then you might not be violent, but you might be volatile. And a man's shown patience and consistency set the emotional thermostat of the home. In Mishlei, Proverbs 15:1, it says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And in Mishlei, Proverbs 20, verse 7, it says, "The righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are their children after them." Because so the Jessie Carstairs Instagram account continues, if she's leading the home, it's not because she wanted to, but because you wouldn't. When a man refuses to lead, the vacuum demands to be filled, and that burden crushes her spirit over time. Every woman becomes a reflection of the man she's with. You cannot demand respect from a woman you fail to lead. You can't expect joy from a woman who lives under uncertainty. Lead well and she'll reflect peace. Lead poorly and she'll reflect chaos. Stop blaming her reaction and start examining your reflection. Her state reveals the kind of man you're choosing to be. When you take ownership, the house heals. I found, so looking further in this, let's say, you want to express yourself. So I found an account, it's called at Bambi Blam. How to voice needs and boundaries when the partner's emotionally unavailable, which is like our next step here. So I find myself guarded. That's not how I want to feel in a relationship, right? Or it feels like I'm holding up more than my share and I don't want to do that anymore. Or I need mutual support and this isn't giving me that. Or I deserve to be acknowledged. I'm no longer okay with feeling invisible. Or I'm no longer willing to stay in a dynamic that doesn't grow with me. Or I've spent too much time editing myself and I'm ready to stop that. Or I don't want to live in that kind of confusion anymore. Or I've outgrown the version of me that chooses this relationship. I want to honor who I've become by letting go. And then like, let's say, like in the same string of it, provocative text to send a man who's not being disciplined from the account Womspire, WOMSPIRE on Instagram. I didn't expect that from you, or guess I misread the energy, my bad. Or you're not like them, but sometimes I'm wondering if you're starting to be. Or your silence says more than you think, or I'm starting to see things more clearly now. Or don't worry, I'm not the one who loses sleep over this. Or I know this ends, I just hope you'll prove, I knew this ends, I just hoped you'd prove me wrong. Or you've changed, I'm not sure if I'm okay with it. Or thanks for the lesson, won't make that mistake again. Or you had me, you just didn't know what to do with me. I wanted to workshop this, like when we integrate shock and disbelief. So there was basically there was an experience I had at the end of November. It was like assault, very a police officer. It was like legally like he so like I was trying to turn it into corrective experience. Like this time around, like quote unquote, like something happened in your life that felt like this. Like, for example, being arrested. So that could be like feeling trapped, feeling like held against your will, like people who have weapons, like treated like guilty, like an animal, like a criminal. And then, the next time that you interact and experience where you're able to find a way to get your sense of power, empowerment, and freedom. So like, basically for me, based on what I went through, I was thinking I could make documentaries, I could do articles, interviews, I could talk about police brutality, but thinking about like the integration of the shock, the grief, disbelief affecting my appetite, exhaustion, work, money, like poverty, and also thinking of deep anger and violent thoughts or hate of the community, or that, a man couldn't follow through on his promises. He claimed it's only been 2 weeks, so I'm ready to move on. And still getting over someone who was very volatile, avoidant, unloyal, dishonest, but he threw this event in my face. It was like he was a perverted. And then there was a boy who laughed and videoed my distress and downfall. That made me feel alienated the most. So just these moments, just touching on this, not trying to trigger anyone. And I want to go into like reverse psychology because, coming back to like like the idea that people in relationships might feel trapped and might have appetite, sleep. Just know that if any of those things I just mentioned, you could have a corrective experience. You could integrate the shock, disbelief, and grief, and express yourself and have, so anyway, I want to talk about reverse psychology. If you're dealing with a person who's really unwell, so like someone who only believes in narcissist, manipulation, control freak, people who hate being told what to do, you basically use their ego-based people. I'm not saying they're bad people, but basically to guide without it looking like you're guiding them, because they have their ego, right? So the forbidden move, make them believe the idea is off limits, irresistible. Like you should text them, or you should say, you're probably too busy to keep up anyway. You plant the seed and walk away. Like, for example, you stop convincing, because the harder you push, the more they resist. So you say something like, you'd probably prefer someone less direct than me. You seem like you need someone who agrees with everything you say. Or let them think it's their idea. People don't resist what they believe they created. So you say something like, you probably wouldn't want the Friday shift. Most people hate it. Or agree in order to disarm. You say, like, power sometimes comes from a strategic surrender. You say, yeah, you're probably right, I might not be the right fit. And it triggers them to actually reassure you, argue in your favor. Suddenly they're defending what you actually wanted. And finally, flip the frame. So instead of arguing with someone or explaining, when they try to guilt trip, control, just reframe. Say, oh, so you're too, so now, like when they tell you, oh, so now you're too good for us, you say, maybe, or just, maybe I start seeing clearly, and then it's not really the way that they kind of set you up. And then I want to talk about, from Dr. Ketam Hamdan, and on Instagram you can find it on integrated_wellbeing_. So the difference between feelings and emotions. So emotions are brief, intense reactions which result from external stimuli, sensations caused by the release of chemicals in the brain, while feelings are emotional, physical thoughts, and our thoughts about the emotions that we experience. They can be accurate or distorted, and moods are less intense, longer lasting, many influences, and they're basically how we feel over time. They're influenced by many factors and usually less intense than emotions. So emotions are often reactions to events or a state due to brain chemical release, and they're automatic, unconscious, often fleeting, often instant, and they help us understand what we do or do not like. And there's 6 universal emotions called joy, fear, disgust, sadness, anger, surprise, and they can often be seen through our expressions, while feelings are how you feel inside your body. They could be physical messages, sensations, and they're more conscious by culture, religion, society. They can be influenced. And they're related, they may or may not be related to emotions, and they're often long-term, like settled in the body. And how we interpret emotions, feelings can be how we interpret emotions, and they vary. So we may experience anger through feelings of rage, aggression, withdrawal, or even vengefulness. And also feelings can be hidden or invisible. So let's talk about triggers. Triggers are stuff from the past that are tied to beliefs held deep down. We do need a safe space to figure it out, and sometimes we don't even notice them, but usually they pop up after tough times. We have to deal with them eventually, and it can make us feel out of touch, and they're totally personal to us. While emotions happen right now, they're triggered by what you see, hear, and feel, and usually you know that they're there, and it's just part of being human. Because and so it's better to let them out than to keep them in, and it's basically pretty similar for most people. But both triggers and emotions make you avoid stuff if you ignore them, and they are nothing to be embarrassed about, and they could mess with your body for a bit. So emotional needs, you have to identify your underlying need, connection. So sadness, like what loss am I grieving, or what do I need for healing? Disgust, what values or standards are being violated? Fear, what safety or security do I seek? Guilt, what standards or values did I just violate? Rejection, what attachments am I working to protect? And anger, what am I trying to defend or protect? What is feeling threatened? So let's think sadness, loss. Disgust, values, violation. Fear, safety, security, guilt. Disgust, like they're being violated. Guilt, what standards did I violate? Rejection, attachments that I want to protect. And anger, what am I trying to defend? Okay, so how we interpret feelings becomes emotions, and emotions can turn into moods, and moods can affect our emotions. So I think we'll stop there, and I wish everybody all the best. May we be well and feel good and have a lot of healing in our relationships. This is the time to get rid of all toxic patterns, emotions, moods, feelings, connections, to to integrate our shock, our grief, to have corrective experiences, and to be able to stand up for ourselves and have tools and boundaries, and to be emotionally available, to feel our feelings, to feel safe emotionally and spiritually.